what out of the ordinary happened. First of all, I want to talk to you about the gift. I want to talk to you about what it means for Europe, what really went on behind closed doors. I'm going to make a second point about the fact that these two guys, I think they like each other. Okay? I'm also going to talk to you what Trump really wants deep down. I want to tell you what happened next. What happens after this, Why alone? Why were they never alone? Why weren't there any question to reporters? And most importantly, let's find out, number 7, what happens next? And number 8, what happens to the US? Number 9, let's talk about the gift. And number 10, let's talk about what Europe does next. So this is very important. This meeting actually is quite interesting. And I will tell you why it's interesting. If you let me do it, I'm going to show you exactly about 10 items that you need to understand. Okay? Besides the fact that they met and everybody's saying, what a waste. What a waste. You went there, you didn't get a peace treaty. I did tell you. He's not going there for a peace treaty because there's no way you're going to get anything. Why not? Because we know what Putin wants, and you know what Ukraine wants. This is not about that. This is about a bunch of other things that I'm going to tell you about. This has nothing to do with Ukraine because there is nothing you can be done about Ukraine. Because Ukraine wants him out. He wants in. Okay? Trump was there for one reason. Obviously, he wants to maintain that relationship with Putin. And to that extent, I would say he did a pretty good job. Why? Look how he ended up. Did you see the detail? Did you see the sign? These are two people that actually like each other. They respect each other. I mean, regardless of what you think about Putin or Trump, these are two very strong characters. Okay? And notice the gift. The gift. Let's start with the gift so you can understand the point I'm going to try to make here. Look at the gift that Putin gave Trump. What did he say? What was the last thing he said at the end? Right? What did he say? He told them, you know what? And you heard Trump said that many times, right? He told them, you know what? At the end of the day, if it were you, if you were the president, I would have never invaded. Feeling pretty good. Right? See what happened? He actually gave him a gift. Right? He told him that basically during the joint press conference, he basically said that if it wasn't up to you, right? This wasn't just rhetoric. That stated the Ukraine war would not have happened if Trump had been president in 2022 instead of Biden. He voiced agreement with Trump's own claim that under Trump leadership, the conflict would have been avoided. That is like, here's a gift for you. I mean, you may believe it or you may not believe it. Not so sure. We shall see. Because at the end of the day, it was a compliment to Trump. Putin's comment was a clear flattening nod to Trump, suggesting that Trump leadership style. No, I'm an investor. I do a bunch of different things. Right? Hey, Shamir. It's a political dig at Biden, obviously, and it's a strategic signaling. There wasn't just rhetoric. It was a depth diplomatic maneuver. Putin positioned Trump as preferable interlocutor and subtly undermined Biden's leadership credibility. Now, is this really true that if Trump was it, he would not invade it? I don't know because, frankly, NATO is getting closer and closer and closer. But the point that he did it. It's a gift. Now, what did Trump give him, right? What did he give him? Well, what he gave him, my friends, he gave him the fact that he got to receive him with the red carpet. You're back in the world. You're not a pariah anymore. And deep down, I will say one thing. I will say 10 things, but one of the other things that I want to say is I think that they like each other at a very, very basic level. And I think deep down, in fact, at the end, basically Putin say, hey, why don't you come around? Why don't you come to Russia next time? And he says, I can't do that. You know how these guys are going to say, right? Basically, I want to see you. They admire each other in some way, right? And again, you're right. It's not about liking. It's about respect. Obviously, they don't like each other. They don't know each other, but they respect. One got shot, right? One has a tremendous amount of people against him. Look at the press. The press is just amazing. He didn't do it. It didn't work. You make a fool out of you. Blah 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 blah. Well, you could agree or disagree, but there's a bent against that meeting, obviously. And at the end of the day, Trump basically gave him this gift, which is to accept him and talk to him. Now, you have to understand one thing. What went on, right? He went to Putin. Basically, they sat down and Putin said, you know what? I don't think so. I know why you're here. I know you want to talk about this. I know what they want. I'll talk about the unnecessary tariffs on India. I'll explain to you exactly what this is about. But as far as Trump is concerned, they went in and Putin told him, I don't think so. How do I know that, right? Hey, Nastya. Hello from Russia. I'd like to hear what the Russian people think. Okay. So what happened? Basically, the reason I could tell you that he went there and they were going to have a big meeting, they brought all these people over, and Putin tell him essentially, this is a no-go as far as I'm concerned. I like you. I don't mind doing it. I think we should have a press conference. I think we should talk about it. But I don't think anything is going to, because I already know, I'm not going to do what Zelensky or these people want. That is never going to happen. I'm not going to give up. And Putin basically plays chess. You have to understand that. Trump plays poker. Two different approach, but big respect for each other. And I will tell you, first of all, why I think that they basically didn't have too much to talk about. And that's basically, essentially, the Alaska meeting, they did not held a 12-person meeting. It's not like they went in there like we thought. Don't forget, there were like 12 people in there. Trump had three. He had 1, 2, 3 people on the side, and I think the other guy had like 5 people. So there was 5, 9, 10, 11. There were lots of people there, and nothing happened. What do you mean nothing happened? Nothing happened because the only formal session was a 3-on-3. You had Trump, Rubio, Wyckoff versus Putin, Lavrov, and the other guy. And they talked for 2.5 to 3 hours back and forth. And basically Putin says, I'm not pulling back. I hate the Europeans. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you respect me, right? You honor me by having me over. But there was a planned working lunch for the wider delegation that was canceled after the talks. Coverage noted that they ended earlier than expected. There was did you notice how long the press briefing was? Very small. No, not real, really. Ruby Genie says not real. Not real, that's what they mean. Right? There was nothing. They went in, they talked. So you said, what was the point of all that? That's what the point I was trying to make to you yesterday. The idea is not about Ukraine, is that Trump wants to make sure that he still has his contact, that he still understands and he still gets to Putin, okay? that there's hope at some point to do business with this guy. Because remember my basic premise is that Trump cannot lose China, India, and Russia together. Okay? Because then, don't forget, in the U.S., the clock is ticking. I mean, look at my previous video in terms of pharmaceutical, in terms of industrial. You know, it's slowly losing. Okay, not losing, but you're not the power that you used to be. So you want to remain relevant. And how do you remain relevant? But you have to talk to people, and you can't let them go in the corner and talk to themselves. So 10 points that I want to make. Stick around. This is very important. Number one, basically Trump went in there and told him, I don't think so. Two, they do like each other. And I will tell you why they like each other. They gave themselves a gift, right? They gave themselves a gift. One told him, without you, I wouldn't have invaded. And the other one basically accepted them, received them like a present, a red carpet. Okay. Now, in terms of public affection, you have to understand early on, really on, okay, really on, during the 2016 campaign, Trump frequently lauded Putin as a strong leader. Now, I mean, you have to understand, one was born a millionaire, one was born with nothing, right? He was nothing. And he worked himself all the way up to become like Peter the Great. That is an accomplishment. You may not like the guy, you may not like either one of them, but you need to understand them as character. And you could imagine them meeting with each other, right? And seeing these larger than life people. And you notice who wasn't there, the rest of them, right? That's the death knell to Europe. That's what it means, really, that you guys, okay, whatever. And what did they do after the fact? What did they do, right? Trump, after the fact, said, you know what? I did my thing. I talked to Zelensky. You guys take it over. Basically, the U.S. is moving on. Okay, this is a done deal. Okay, so they like each other. It was labeled as a bromance. The term prompted critics and analysts to dub their relationship a bromance, fueled by mutual flattery and public praise. Right? They like each other. I mean, don't forget, this is, these are two big important people. They have accomplished things that not many people and you will never accomplish in your life. Right? Is it luck? Is it whatever? You have to take it for what it is. They wore the warm optics at recent summit. In 2025, Trump greeted Putin with a red carpet, limo ride together. They were not supposed to be in the same limo, by the way, because Putin brought his own car, his own fortress of a car, and he didn't take it. He took the ride with him. Okay? Coverage described a notably cordial atmosphere. They exchanged greeting and shared a limo at the start. It wasn't supposed to be that way. Despite Trump calling the relationship fantastic and indicate great progress, the summit produced no meaningful agreements. That's where they're wrong. No. They understand each other, right? Now, can they do something with it? I mean, it's not love, it's interest. But they have respect. Basically, we're talking about respects and interests, right? And Putin himself referred to his rapport with Trump as a strong, trusting, and practical relationship. Remember, the guy's a KGB spy. During the meeting, Putin dramatized that Russia might not have invaded Ukraine if not for Biden's presidency, echoing Trump's narratives. He gave him a gift. He said, you know what? He was right. Listen to this guy. I would never invite if he was president. I mean, that is some acknowledgement. Is he because he was afraid of Trump, because he liked Trump, because he could have talked to Trump? You don't know exactly why he wouldn't have done it, if he would have done it at all. Maybe he would have still invaded. But he respects Trump's leadership style. Of course, people are saying this is tactical. And you'll never know, because remember, Putin, chess player, right? He plays a move, thinking 5 moves ahead. You do not become who he is in Russia by just, no. You have to be very, very sharp, and you have to recognize that. Now, of course, the Trump has shifted. Trump was frustrated at some point because he was talking to Putin. Putin was saying, yeah, 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 but nothing was going on. Okay. Um, and I think that he gets worried more and more. And I think that what's happening, they are becoming more and more aware that there is a situation happening. And we have, just give me a second, let me do some cleanup here. Because it's important. I mean, what you're seeing in front of me, uh, Monique says, you're just mad, I'm right. Trump, you're just mad, I'm right. Trump is losing. Well, no, I mean, who knows who's losing, who's winning? It's just a concept of analysis of what went on. Because what do you mean by winning and losing? I mean, if you're saying that Trump lost because he couldn't get a peace treaty, I mean, if you believe that was possible, I can't help it, but that's not possible. You cannot get a peace treaty, okay? Um, and I don't know what Trump really feels about Putin. All I could tell you is that he gave him a gift. The other guy gave him a gift back. I think Trump, at the end of the day, is trying to get some sort of. I think he's looking for the a peace what do you call Nobel Peace Prize. In fact, I think Hillary Clinton said herself, if he could get, and that's what she was joking around, if he could get a peace treaty, I'll nominate him to be the Nobel Peace Prize. Which she knows herself. You guys are joking, right? What America gained from the war ending, what Trump gains really, what the administration gained, is because you need to understand that in the US, the MAGA people are very powerful, right? Meaning that the MAGA, which is Make America Great Again, founded by Trump, amazingly enough, they do not want any foreign involvement. It would have been nice to get that. It would have been nice to have a peace treaty, but you're not going to get a peace treaty, right? And essentially, it is not a good thing. The highest tariff on India, the reason why he put the tariff on India, that 50%, although I don't believe it's coming into action, but yet, but the point is, the reason he's doing that, it's not so much because of the oil that he's getting from Russia, because he knows very well that India is not going to stop 30%. What he's upset, what he's not is upset, is his interest is not aligned, because India is spending more and more time with Russia and spending more and more time with China. And frankly, the US has not been able to get India off the agriculture tariff that they're charging on the US to send agriculture, right? So it is extremely complicated. And imagine you're doing that while you have the entire press corps basically spewing and sending news about. I mean, you could see the news, and some of you are repeating it, right? He failed to secure Ukraine deal. Did you expect a deal like that? No, they all knew. They all knew this was not going to. It's impossible for what they are looking for, right? Trump rolls out the red carpet, and he got little in return. That's a big news. That's the main news. You're telling me, so this is not biased in a way. What do you mean he didn't get anything? Of course he got something. He gets along with a guy. He wants to get along with Russia. He's maintaining the relationship. How do we know that he got along? The guy gave him a gift. He said, you know what? If it wasn't for you, if you were president, we would never be in this position. That is a fantastic gift. Does it mean it? It's a different story. And it's important to keep your enemies, quote unquote, closer than your friend, because now if you get China, India, and Russia together, and they're very much together. How do I know? Well, China is doing lots of emergency. They're doing a lot of, in fact, a tremendous amount of activities, right? Back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. They're doing. They sign agreements. They're training together in the China Sea, in war, right? So they're doing a lot of things. So it is very important to grasp, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel, by the way. And I will be also putting together a special membership only. Got to make some money here, where I will actually recommend several of my, investment strategies, right, to take advantage of all this. How to take advantage of all this mess, right? I will show you. You'll see. There's always a possibility to do it. Anyway, so what are we saying? What we're saying basically is that there has been a long history of, quote unquote, relationship between them. Trump has historically expressed admiration and desire for a friendly relationship with Putin, maybe because he likes the guy, but I think it's, it's a trophy. I mean, wouldn't you like to meet Putin? Putin has reciprocated with warmth, but largely on a strategic move. Who knows what he likes, he doesn't like. I mean, he's a very special character. But both men's views are evolving. And I think they met, and in a way, they could make a movie out of it where, I wish we could talk. I wish we could be, because we have so much in common. We're better than all these other people. And remember what he said? They were talking back and forth at the end. There was not even a question from, and I'll talk about that. They were talking back and forth. And what did Putin recommend? Hey, why don't you come to Russia? And you could see it was not scripted. And Trump was, wow, I would love to, but you know what they're going to say? You're going to blame us again, right? It was a cute little moment at the end, right? And they were kind of showing some affection. Now, of course, what you need to understand is point number 4. Where's Europe? All they say is, where's the deal? Go make a deal. Go make a deal. Do this. Do that. That's never going to happen, right? You know what? You want the peace, you go and make it. And it's basically, what did Trump said? Here's a post remark. What did he say? He said it was a very productive, but there was no deal. I'm not going to talk. There's not going to be a press conference. It was very productive, but no formal agreement. He never said very productive towards, the peace treaty. Maybe very productive between our relationship, and then we understand each other, and maybe at some point we could do business with each other, right? There is no deal until there's a deal, which means there is no deal. He pushed Ukraine to make a deal. In communication with Zelensky, Trump implied that Ukraine needs to compromise. He said, listen, I met with the guy, I took all the crap from everyone, now it's up to you to do something, yeah? Maybe thinking that Ukraine has to agree to. Maybe they'll say, no, got to make a deal. And he said, Russia is very powerful, and that you should believe. Russia is producing more tanks than the U.S. NATO has said themselves that we are running behind Russia. Be careful, right? Russia is not that weak as people think it is. Inform yourself, and you'll find out. Then they're going to schedule further talk between Putin, Zelensky, and European. But I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think Putin's going to want with Zelensky because don't forget, Trump also got Putin got also what he wanted because he kept Trump away from the European. I am from Russia. Austin, what do you think? What are you saying? Mr. S. I don't know. Let me know what your views how, but anyway. And of course, there's a talk of a future meeting in Moscow, which is fantastic. Let's talk some more. Let's discuss. Let's have a relationship. And that's what it's about. That tells you that Trump succeeded in doing is keeping Putin. And I don't know if you also realized, point of importance, you'll notice that there was no press conference. That is highly unusual for Trump. because he likes to go back in and say this is Biden's fault or whatever. None of this happened. None of this happened. Why? Because it's another gift to Putin. Putin said, listen, there's nothing to talk about here. I mean, I'm not going to answer questions. I don't feel like answering questions. Plus, first of all, the press corps is just against you and I, so we're not going to get anything good. So be careful, okay? Let's talk it off. Let's work it off. Let's see what happened. And that's my point number 6. There was no question from reporters because there was nothing to talk about. It was highly scripted. Whatever they said they wanted to say, it had been done in a very short amount of time. Number 7, what happens next? Well, what happens next is fairly simple. In fact, it's already happening. Trump turned to Zelensky and said, listen, it's up to you and the Europeans want to help you. You guys want to go out, do it. But we are more or less out of here. Why? Because 2026, I've got election coming up in Congress. And the MAGA people are going to say, what did you do? Well, what I did, I got us out of this war. We're out. Fine. The MAGA people do not want this war. Okay, I have to ask a question because let's see. Who won? Trump or Putin? I mean, let's keep it really, really simple. Starting poll right now. Let me know. When Russia and China and Iran team up, that's going to be it for the U.S. Well, that's what I've been saying. That is what you need to understand what these people are there for, right? These people are not there to talk, right? They're here to protect their interests. And right now, the U.S., it's very simple, actually. The U.S.'s interest is to keep China from Russia, from India. You will notice that these three, it's not easy to talk to them. India, he threatened 50%. And what did India say? Well, you know what? What do you want from me? You want me to stop the oil from Russia? That's not going to happen. It's going to create inflation in my country. You want me to start buying wheat from the U.S. and remove the 39% tariffs? That's not going to happen either. I'm going to lose my people, right? I'm going to lose the farmers in India, which are very, very strong power for him to. It's like a MAGA, basically, right? They have their own MAGA, technically. I'm not joking. India has its own MAGA. It's not called MAGA, but it's basically called. I believe I don't want to butcher the name, but I did tell you the name before. It's called, and if there's Indian people, maybe they could tell us Swadeshi. It's called the Swadeshi push. In fact, the people in India want Modi to do the Swadeshi push. It's an Indian nationalistic economic movement that emphasizes self-reliance, local production, reduced dependence on foreign goods and capital. So we don't want to order the stuff from the U.S. Close them out. That's the farmers, right? You lose the farmer, there is no Modi. So he's got his own interests. So and what the U.S. administration is trying to do is basically, well, show me some love. Show me that you care. Okay? You want to do business with Russia? Then give me something else. Well, then give me the tariff. Take the tariffs off. Okay, then do some investment, because right now I'm not seeing anything. All I'm seeing, by the way, India is Modi is going to attend the SCO summit in China. What do you think? They don't see that? I mean, U.S. administration sees it. So what do you think they're going to be talking? They're going to get closer and closer and closer. What do we do? Modi will visit China for the SCO summit on August 31st. Right? Marking his first trip since 2019. He will also meet Japan's PM in Tokyo on August 30th. So Modi is going to China. Putin plans to visit India at the end of 2025. And Trump tried to get a meeting with India and Australia and Japan. Didn't work. They did not want to see him. So what do you do? Right? That's a very difficult position. And don't forget, when you have the entire world on your back telling you you're failing, it's not working, right? That's a problem. You need to be able to basically understand the situation. Now, of course, you're going to say, well, why do I care? I mean, they're mad, they talk, they're a bunch of millionaires talking to each other. How does this impact me? It does impact you. I'll show you why. Because if the U.S. administration is not successful and these three gets together and gets closer, and when I mean get together and closer, agreement, meetings, right? China did a humongous amount of agreement with Russia right now. So either they split the world in 4 or in 3, or there's only 2 parts, them and the U.S. Okay? And that's going to be a problem going forward. Yes, and obviously Brazil. And let me just, okay. So that's what's happening. So there is a lot of issue right now that you need to worry, because if they get together and you live in the US, right, eventually you're going to have to pay more and more for your, I don't know, let's pick one, antibiotics. All of it produced in China right now. What happened when they close the door and you can't have access? Well, I'll pay more for the dollar. No, they're not going to take it. They don't want the dollar anymore. They have their BRICS currency. That's what's at stake here. And that's the reason why you have JD Vance and Marco Rubio there, to show this is not just between those two guys. This is extremely important. They sat around the table. The U.S. can produce antibiotics, yeah, but the U.S. never, there was no point of doing it because somebody else was doing it cheaper. Right? So that's okay. As long as you know you have access to it. So what's the problem? Maybe they know that this door is closing. No, the reason I could tell you that the door is closing is very simple. Look at it. The administration is trying to get a meeting with China and an agreement. They cannot agree. It gets postponed and postponed and postponed. Right? So they basically say, you know what? I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it. What do you mean you're not going to do it? There's no sense of me doing it because it's not going to work. So the issue that they're having right now, and that's a major issue, is they can't get China's attention. Okay, how about India? I don't know. You just threatened India with 50%. Do you see any change? Okay, how about Russia? At least there's some love here, quote unquote, right? There's some understanding. He gave him a gift, and the other one gave him a gift. So they are exchanging gifts. So at least to that extent, and hopefully you'll realize that this is actually good for the U.S. because you probably kind of, kept the relationship a little bit closer, right? But it is going to be a lot of work. And I think, unfortunately, and I think that theme is being picked up more and more, the U.S. is running out of time. One, don't forget that by next year, there's a new Congress. Hopefully, still Republican for the Republicans, or maybe, hopefully for the Democrats, they flipped over because they said, look, this was a total failure. Because you look at this, they're going to say this was a failure. Second, Trump himself is running out of time. There's only 3 years left. And frankly, it's not 3 years, it's 2 years, because the last year, you're a lame duck as a president. Swadeshi movement, that's it. That's the word I was looking for, Karan. And number three, you know, you don't have 50 years to rebuild your industry. You have maybe 5 to 7 years, 3 to 5 on some of them, in terms of somebody said, well, can we build antibiotics? Well, and then go ahead. What do you think? What do you think it happens tomorrow? Do you know how long it takes to bring back rare minerals, rare earth minerals on average? 15 years. For you to, I mean, it's not rare. The stuff is in the US and in Russia, but for you to bring it over here, it takes 15 years. You don't have 15 years. Too late by then. It's too late. It's too late. So that's why it's a, right? Of course, you could say, well, okay, fine, we're running out of time, but was this a way to do it? 50% on tariffs on India, 39% on Switzerland, 50% on Brazil. Forget the tariff, because those countries don't pay the tariffs, you know, at the end of the day. But you're closing the business with them. These were your friends. Is this how you treat your friends? Right? Is this how you treat your friends? I got no choice. I got no time. I've got no time. So, recap time. Basically, the Russia, let me make sure I don't forget some of my points. So the US are out. Number 9, the gift. So you saw the gift. And number 10, Europe. There is no Europe. It's a bunch of merchants. Now be careful. Be careful, because right now, as we're talking and making fun of the Europeans, they are building very fast their own armies. Okay? Right? So that's going to be a situation at some point, but not right now. It's going to take them a couple of years to build it up. Okay? But of course, you need a leader. And it was obvious, right? In World War II, what did you have, right? You had the Russian, the English, and the Americans, right? Sitting at the table. You had the Yalta. Then you had the one before that, where they agreed to splitting the world. You know, Bretton Woods, U.S., Russia, England. U.S., Russia. Now it's just U.S., Russia. That's it. Europe is out. What does that mean? Well, it means essentially that if you're going to do business with Europe, I mean, from a strategic point of view, that's a problem. Europe trying to do business with China, they're concerned about China. Why are they concerned about China? Because China is producing so much stuff, they're going to dump everything on the European, and that's going to be a lot of money. It's going to have deflation in Europe. They're afraid of that. So you, depending where you are, if you are in the US, watch out, because this world is changing fast. You have a few more years, and then you're running out of time too. Meaning that if you want antibiotics, you're going to have to pay extra for it. I put something recently on Social Security, which is not enough. By 2033, there's no money in Social Security, by the way. This is what this channel is about, and don't forget to subscribe. This channel is about Black Swan. What is a Black Swan? We didn't think there was a Black Swan. We wanted to think there was a white thing, white song, running around, having a good time. There cannot be a Black Swan. Yes, there is. And you don't want to find that, right? And this channel basically follows the economy, the stock market, the dollar, the tariffs, the thing with Powell and Trump. I'll make one quick comment on Social Security. Social Security in the U.S. has nothing to do with the budget. All the money from Social Security is coming from the payroll tax. And the way it works, it's not like it's over for Social Security. It's not so much that you're investing, right? They're putting the money I think they're 6%, 4% from you and 4% for the employer. I think it's 6 or 6, I think. No, 6% from you, 6% from the employer. It's not like they're putting this money and investing it for you. No, they're taking the money and they're paying the retirees. The problem is the retirees and the new people, less people. There's a gap. There's not enough people paying for it. So there's enough money for 2033. Be aware of that. That's a black swan. I'm telling you here, be aware that by 2033, you're going to take a 20% cut. Unless they take money from one place and they put it somewhere else, but that can't just happen like that. You need an act of Congress. It needs to be changed because technically the money from Social Security only comes from payroll tax. Okay? And Europe, like I said before, Europe is out. Unfortunately, that's never going to happen. Why? Well, it's very simple. First, there is no leader. There's no leader in Europe. In Europe, I mean, it's a big force. There's a bunch of people, but so back to what we're talking about between this relationship between Trump and Putin. What happened? Trump went to Putin, and Putin, they probably, welcome in his car. They went into the place. They were supposed to have a bunch of meetings. It was supposed to a long time. It didn't last anyway. He told him, listen, just remember one thing. There's no deal here. I'm not giving up anything that I have. I am on top of 20% of Ukraine, which frankly, look at the history. But before the 50s, it belonged to Russia. The whole story. We're not even going into that. But basically, this is what Putin's view is. This was always Russian. So, okay, fine, you could have it. But now, on top of that, you're bringing the NATO on top of me. That's not going to happen. I don't want that. That's his view. That's him to his. You agree with it. You don't agree. That's what he wants. But basically, he told Trump, stop. Okay, let's talk about other things, but this because that's not going to happen. Okay. Okay, we have a tremendous amount of vote. Let's see. Putin won. Well, I would tend to agree. As 60% of you said that Putin has won this. Well, yes, because at the end of the day, technically, if he goes to France, he could arrest him. Now, people say, well, how come you're not arresting him? Well, the U.S. and Russia are not part of this international tribunal courts. We don't recognize that court, quite frankly. The U.S., and so you can't arrest him because of that. You go to Europe, they could be arrested, but not in the U.S. That's not going to happen. Okay? So that's it. So so he went in and he said, I'm not, don't talk to me because let's talk about something else, but not that. And and I know, right? You and I know that what they want, they're going to get. I am sitting on 20% of Ukraine. That's right, the ICC. That's not going to happen. The second thing that is happening is they like each other. Well, at least they respect each other. They don't have the same interests, right? The U.S. wants him to stop the war. He would like to stop the war and stop it the way it is. The U.S. basically wants to make sure that the MAGA movement that doesn't get involved in another war. So the more you ask me to give weapons, get involved, the less I like. Okay. Is Ukraine and Russia going to stop at any point? Well, it could stop very quickly, actually. The way it stops is the U.S. says, you know what? I did my job. I told him what you wanted, and he knew already. And we knew that you knew that you're never going to get that. And that's it. No more weapons. No more weapons. So technically, maybe you agreed with Putin that, okay, you stop where you are, don't give any more weapon, and we just freeze it. Just freeze. Don't say it's yours, you just freeze it, and that's it. The war between the U.S. and Korea never ended, technically. So we don't need to sign anything. Let's just stop fighting. It's like people divorce or live in the same house and they don't divorce. They just can't stand each other, and that's it. You take the kitchen in the morning, I take the kitchen at night, and we don't fight and we move on. That is what's happening right now. That is exactly what's happening. And then they probably talked about other things. These are the things that you want to know. What else did they talk about? What did they agree on? Right? That's what you want to know. And that you're not going to know. That is impossible to know. But they talk about something else. And they do have a certain, attraction, I would say, respect. I mean, both of them are very hard men. I mean, you may agree or disagree or like him or don't like him, but one got shot, the other one killed a bunch of people. They survived. People try to kill them, including Putin. He's got a double, by the way. Hopefully that wasn't a double, but. And I think what motivates Trump, deep, he wants the Nobel Prize. He's got a bunch of countries that he helped. Azerbaijan, country in Africa. Nobody really pays attention. There's no press at it at all. But he's gonna run peace. He stopped the thing with Israel and Iran. I mean, this is not over, as I've been saying. It's gonna come back. And now it's up to the European to do this thing. Putin has 10 doubles, yes. Imagine to live. This is not, trust me, this is not a life that you want. Either one. You do not want to live like that, right? It's, well, I think what Trump is upset is that Obama got the Peace Prize as he went through the door. And he said, what did he do to deserve the Nobel Peace Prize? Look what I'm doing. I brokered this war and that war and this war. I was trying to do something here. Right? He's a businessman. He doesn't want to fight. There's no sense of fighting. Fighting doesn't help anyone. It's not helpful. Nobody wins by fighting. Who cares? Nobody wins. Number 4, it is up to the European to do what they need to do. Number 5, why didn't they have a one-on-one meeting? That's a good question. Why didn't they have a one-on-one meeting? Because what happened is basically there was no, the only formal session was a 3-on-3 that ran for 2.5 to 3 hours. A planned working lunch was canceled after the talk. Coverage ended the day earlier than expected. So it was a lot shorter than people expected. I think the time they had their meeting is when Trump told them, hey, you want to ride in my car? That is the time when I think that they had that meeting. Okay, right now, 58% Putin and 42% Trump. So Putin has won. Well, yeah, I mean, he was received red carpet, right? There was no questions. He didn't sign a peace agreement. He was, I mean, you can imagine what goes into his head, but he got what he wanted. He got the stature. And what did Trump got? Well, basically, he still has a relationship with him. From what Putin was saying, he said some nice thing. I'm inviting you over to my country. Without you, there would probably not be a war if you were president. So that's always nice. And they weren't alone because I think the only time they were alone is when they were in that car. Why no question, number 6, why no question from reporters, right? Well, I think there was more of, I think it had to do with the fact that they didn't want to lose control of the narrative, okay? Basically, let me see. I believe that I looked into this. I talked about the fact that they looked each other. I wanted to tell you about something else. If there was a meeting, there was a joint overture basically towards Trump, emphasis on respectful, constructive atmosphere, invitation for future summit in Moscow, symbolic trust via joint limo ride. That's important, believe it or not here. And Libred overtures, I'm here to help you. He kind of said it, nobody really heard it, but there was many analysts that they didn't want to take question, and this is the first time that actually Trump does not have a full discussion with those guys after the fact. Okay. They basically said that. Okay. What they basically said was the following: that by skipping press questions, Trump spared Putin from potentially uncomfortable queries about Ukraine war crimes. He told him, listen, the press doesn't like you. They certainly don't like me. So please don't put me in front of that. I don't want to answer questions. Okay? Because it's going to be a disaster. This allowed Putin to leave the stage looking like an equal partner without facing tough scrutiny, something Russian state media highlight as a win. Maybe that's what you're saying, that 56% of you said that Putin won. U.S. media outlets like AP and Reuters stress how unusual it was, noting it deprived the public of transparency. Really? Of course, critics are that it made Trump appear more concerned about optics and accountability. No, I think that was another gift to Putin. Russian media framed the summit as evidence that the U.S. respects Russia as a great power. Don't forget, Trump is a poker player, so let's deal this thing right now. The other guy is a chess player. So we'll see who the winners were. Some analysts also see a Trump protecting himself, avoiding unscripted moments that could backfire. Don't forget, you have to be more and more careful. JD told him, he said, listen, Mr. President, you got to be careful, right? Whatever you say now, they're going to use us. You're going to use it against us at the end of 2026. Was it an intentional gift? Probably not in the literal sense, but functionally, yes. Putin benefited from the absence of uncomfortable questions. Well, yes. Unfortunately, the war continues, right? It's very difficult to stop these type of things. Very difficult. Number 7, what happens next? Well, what happens next, it's up to the European and Zelensky to basically say, you know what, let's give it up. Now, having said that, keep in mind that Zelensky is very weakened. He was weakened because of this scandal that happened not too long ago. Okay. I think the war is over, if you ask me. I mean, I agree with Tate Dupe there. The reason I think this is happening is because really? I don't know what's happening with Barron Trump. I mean, who knows? Maybe there was some sort of relationship. But that's basically what's happening. And this is a very, very interesting because for 57% of you said Putin won. Yes. I mean, so basically Putin won because he won because of there was no press conference, right? He was well received, right? He rode in the limo. And basically Trump got the thing about the war and Biden. And, he got the invite to Russia. But all of these things, unfortunately, are going to impact everyone. Obviously, the Ukrainian are impacted because this thing continues. No. What I mean is, when I mean the war is over, meaning that I think at some point Trump is going to say, I can't do it. I can't keep getting involved in this war. I can't. Okay, you guys have got to. You got to get involved. You got to do your thing, because the more I give you a weapon, the worse it gets for me, and I can't do it. So I'm out of this business. I'm gonna. Once that shipment is out, we're gonna just slowly, quietly stop shipping. If you want to keep fighting, you go ahead. Maybe you had an agreement with Putin that says, I'm going to freeze where I am and I'm done. Okay. I think that we will wait for the outcome, and only peace will be the winner. Yes, yes. But you have to understand, this is one thing, this between Ukraine. But again, like I said, Trump wasn't there for that. Trump was there for a different reason. It's not just Trump. You had JD Vance, you had Marco Rubio. These are important people, right? Why do you think they're there? Right? Why do you think these people are there? These people are there for a very specific reason. And they're there to basically make sure that their interests are protected. That is very important. You need your interests protected. Because as a country, Ukraine is strong, but how much this is going on for a while, and this is not good for the U.S. This is not good for the administration, and that's why you had these two guys there with Trump, because they want to say, okay, you know what, the MAGA people are here, and we want to make sure that this thing stops. Keep in mind that JD Vance, who was there, right? Why is JD there? Well, JD Vance appears as a high-stake U.S.-Russia summit with President Trump. It sends a packed signal both domestically and internationally. It's a symbol of administration priorities, right? Vance's involvement underscored the meeting's full administration endorsement. It reinforces the skepticism toward Ukraine. That's why you didn't get a deal. Vance has been consistent critic of U.S. aid to Ukraine. He's publicly argued for a freeze of the conflict, supporting territory concession and neutrality for Kiev instead of full restoration of its pre-war boundaries. His presence as a summit signals that the administration is likely positional Vance's view, meaning that where Ukraine must compromise, you have got to give up the 20%. This is probably what he's going to tell Zelensky. You got to give it up. Okay? Even NATO. I'm going to bring the actual quote so you understand the fact, right? What is NATO's view, and I had that somewhere, right, on Russian army. Okay. I know that the head of NATO at that time said, this is what NATO says. That's not me, it's NATO. Russia represents a severe security threat. Okay. Military capability. Some analysts argue that while the Russian has shown adaptability and sustained heavy combat, it has exposed significant limitation. Despite losses, NATO expert warned that Russia poses a formidable threat through overwhelming drone and missile capabilities. The war is changing, right? Don't forget super chats. The war is changing. If you want to make a strong point, give me a super chat and I'll bring it up. I'll see what your point is. The war is changing. It is not being fought the way it used to. Now it is going to be fought with missiles. It's going to be fought with drones. And unfortunately, we don't do that. The U.S., I mean, I'm not saying the U.S. has got a bad army. I'm not saying that. It's just things are moving quickly. Okay? And the U.S. is still fighting the old kind of war, you know, with a submarine, with the ships, right? With the bombers. No, it's not like that anymore. What happened? Look what happened. Look what's happening right now in Russia versus Ukraine. Do you see soldiers going across, you know, with tanks? No. Do you see what happened with Israel and Iran? Right? That's how it's being fought. So you have to be careful. No name. This is an interesting comment. Most non-biased source will say Russia plus China and Iran, I don't know about Iran, but would beat the head of NATO. Yes. Please understand that. Now, the last time the U.S. won a war was a long time ago. Okay. Even so, I mean, Russia currently maintains local superiority along NATO's eastern flank, making rapid response. What did the NATO General Secretary said? You know, what did he say specifically, right? About here. This is a NATO guy. The NATO guy. That's what he said. Key statement to NATO Secretary Mark Rutte. That's the one that called Trump daddy. Urgent call for a quantum leap. That means a big leap in defense in London mid-2025. Rutte warned NATO members to drastically ramp up defense efforts. He urged a 400% increase in air and missile defense capabilities and proposed raising defense spending to 3.5% plus an additional 1.5% to related infrastructure. Aligning with the U.S. calls for a total of 5% GDP. The guy himself, so if you hear somewhere that tells you that Russia is losing, the army is not working out, please don't listen. Listen to NATO, the NATO guy himself. Russia produces in 3 months what NATO produces in a full year. So if tomorrow he wants to come over, there's nothing these guys could do. Right? It is on track. Russia produces in 3 months, right? Russia is on track to manufacture 1,500 tanks, 3 armored vehicles, 200 Iskander missiles within a year. Right? He warned that this could enable a potential Russian military threat to NATO in just 5 years. Russia has old Soviet weaponry that's fading fast. I don't know where you get that information from. The NATO guy himself, read it. You know, inform yourself, because this is what this channel is about. This channel is about understanding the world you live in. This channel is about, you know, what's going on and how it's going to impact you. Okay? Let me see some of the comment. Well, U.S. is the most, quote-unquote, powerful country. It depends what you mean by powerful, right? Soldier-wise, yes, the U.S. has more nuclear weapons than everyone else. That's true. More submarines, correct. More aircraft carrier, yes. But everything else, not so good anymore. In fact, Let me tell you. Let me give you an actual piece of information. Is how many days of missiles does the U.S. have in the event of an attack? Listen to this one. Missiles and ammunition in a rapid war. Obviously, I'm talking against China, right? War game simulation indicates, and if I know that, I'm sure the Chinese and everyone knows that the U.S. could run out of critical munition like missiles within just 8 days. The reason we know, right, is because, and again, read it, in a recent 12-day conflict between Israel and Iran, the U.S. deployed about 150 interceptors, accounting for 25 of its entire stockpile. And that's the reason why, I think the way it went is he said, I got to stop this. His defense came to him and said, we're feeding Israel with all these interceptors. We're running out of interceptors. But then JD Vance said, what are you doing? You're going to get involved in a war? You know that MAGA doesn't want it. And this is what makes an executive. We have to make an executive decision and say, well, if I do anything, we're going to run out of ammunition ourselves. Because that's not our thing. Missiles is not our thing, right? I mean, I guess not. In that case, everything is possible. We have 10 million missiles then. I don't know. Right? And I think what happened is JD Vance probably told them, listen, don't do anything. He said, well, if I do anything, Marco Rubio here and the other guy is telling me that I'm running out of missiles, so I got to stop it. Let's send 2 bombers, crack this thing down, and we're done. But the point being is that because of low missile inventory, the U.S. temporarily paused deliveries of air defense ammunition, including Patriot missiles, to Ukraine. I mean, these are facts. I mean, I don't know why they probably stopped for another reason, but analysts say current stock only amounts to about 24% of what the Pentagon deems necessary for global operations. Right? Not that there's going to be a war. I'm not concerned because at the end of the day, everybody's got the atomic bomb. Who's going to mess around with the U.S.? No. It's not a question of attacking the U.S. and invading the U.S. and taking over and, like Red Dawn or whatever. That's just not what it's about. What it's about, right? What it's about is the fact that you need to pray the hands of India, China, and Russia apart from each other, right? Because they're forgetting about the U.S. They're not, apart from Putin, nobody else is talking to the U.S. I mean, they're talking, but they're not agreeing. Modi, very mad, extremely mad at the U.S., so he's not talking. China, I guess they're talking, but everything gets postponed and postponed and postponed. Okay? And that's what this channel is about. And I want you to join this channel because we go over, the facts, what I know, what I see, what I read. Not imagination. I'm not saying this is the truth all the time. We just look what's happening and we inform ourselves and we learn and we understand and we take advantage. And I use that information to understand what's happening in the world to make sure, okay, should we be in stock right now? Because right now, quite frankly, defense stocks in Europe, I'm gonna do a video on that. Defense stock in Europe, you should go to town. Right? Because technically what they said is, okay, fine, then we're gonna go in there and start spending some money. What do you think the market is up in Europe because of that? 5%, that's a huge amount. And maybe some of those people say, what are you talking about ending the war? We're gonna keep fighting. Let's keep them fighting. We need to feed the weapon. We need more weapon. Okay? So I want you to be informed, and then you could discuss whatever your view is and everything else. But at the end of the day, you want to take advantage of it, and obviously you don't want to get caught in it. So obviously, what's going to happen here is the U.S. is going to stop the weapons in some fashion, right? Some backlash. But the MAGA people will be happy so that in 2026, right, they'll be happy. And he says, listen, the war stopped. It froze basically because Ukraine cannot fight any longer. Russia stopped fighting for whatever reason. Maybe I'm in agreement with Putin. and that's it. We're done. And no more fighting. And I stop all these wars everywhere, right? That's what you wanted. So we re-elect the Republicans in Congress. But like I said, that's not just the only thing that you have to worry about. There's 12 items you have to worry about. And one of the items, believe it or not, nothing to do with this thing, is the Maxwell story. That is a concern because we do not know exactly what is exactly happening, right? We do not know. We do not know exactly what's happening with Maxwell. All we know is that Congress, again, with a view of being reelected at the end of next year, they're basically all saying, yes, I want to know. We really want to know. I really want to know what happened. I have nothing to hide. Nobody wants to get stuck against the wall with that glue that's you're going to stick to if you have anything to do with the Epstein story. And that is also a MAGA story. Okay? So we need to understand what's happening, and that's key. The MAGA story is key. We're looking also at inflation, because obviously everyone is saying, what's going to happen with inflation? Inflation is going to hit us again. This is going to be a problem. What are we doing? Well, with inflation is fairly simple. If you give me, inflation right now is not that high. I'm not saying there's no inflation, but inflation is not that high to the point where you have to worry about and walking around like, oh my God, no, it's 2.5, 2.6, that inflation in the US is quite low. Now, of course, the question is it going to keep the way it is? Is it going to keep staying at that level? That is the question. So, what do we have? Trump went in and Putin told him, don't even try it. Okay, fine. Let's have a meeting. Let's talk about it. I think what you should do is basically, freeze this thing where it is. I'm sending in no any more weapon, and we're done. That's it. That's all there is to say here. That's all there is to say. People are going to cry a little bit for a while, but then the war is going to stop anyway because, frankly, they don't want to fight. You obviously don't want to take all over Ukraine and Europe, right? So, and then you got your buffer, and you got your 20%. I got my war stopped. I'm going to be happy with the MAGA people are going to be very happy. I'm not sending any more weapons. And frankly, nobody cares about the European at this point, so we're done. And then when things coming down, you invited me to Russia. I'll come over. You've got some earth. You have some rare earth. I like to do business with the rare earth, so I don't have to depend 80% to 90% from China, because China, frankly, is closing in. China is basically, closing. China is out. They are basically decoupling. And the reason I could tell you is decoupling is because look at the news. China is building this huge dam, this powerful $168 billion they're building. This thing in the mountains, it's a monster, and it's gonna take care of all of their, well, not all, but a major party of their energy. They don't want to depend on anyone from energy. China owns about 40 to 50% of all the shipbuilding in the world. That's their market share, 39%. This is amazing. Okay. So China is slowly decoupling. They don't want anything to do with the loud Americans and all these Europeans and blah, blah, blah. Why don't we just do business with each other? We're next to each other. We kind of understand each other. We're kind of an autocracy, right? We could be, we could be friends. We're next to each other anyway. Let's do business. And we don't need the US anymore. Because we have BRICS, right? We have BRICS. And potentially we have our own currency. That's what the US is fighting very hard. And they're running out of time. Because if that happens and the dollar loses its value, you know what happens, right? Because right now the dollar the dollar right now is a reserve currency. What does that mean? It means you want to do business anywhere in the world, you have to use the dollar. Can you lose that? Could that be lost? Yeah, people don't want to use it anymore. That's it. It's done. It's over. Well, they're always going to use it. Well, I don't know. Biden weaponized the dollar when Putin invaded Ukraine. Remember that? You probably didn't realize it was weaponizing. But that means that Putin could not use the dollar for anything. Putin could not use the dollar to buy oil, to sell oil, to do anything. And yet, look at him. The NATO guy himself is telling you, be careful. These guys are doing a pretty good job, so you got to be careful. You have to be careful because they have the ability to make your life miserable. And if they don't want the dollar anymore, then they're definitely not going to be buying your debt. Right? You know what I mean by the debt? The US owes $37 trillion. $37 trillion, okay? This year alone, $9 trillion needs to be refunded. 9 trillion needs to be refinanced. That's okay. Well, we need to print more dollars. What happens when you can't print anymore because nobody wants it? Right? Just cleaning up a little bit the chats. That's right. So what's going on is basically, the China is decoupling. They don't want to have any business to do with you. So, and right now, you have $37 trillion that you owe, $9 trillion due this year. And the reason the U.S. is able to continue is because it's able to print dollars to pay for it. That's what's been happening. Print the dollars. Do you know who has reduced its amount of debt, of treasuries? Okay. Want to know who did? China. China right now has, for the first time, owned less treasuries than England. Okay. There's more than 9 trillion. Somebody asked me a question on the, hold on. You know, you gotta be more informed about everything. What do you think is going to shoot to the dollar? Do you know how much currency manipulation they have right now? Yes, there's going to be a lot of manipulation. Well, if you don't like the president, you could vote him out. That's the way it goes. So this is a reason I could tell you that the debt is important, because right now China, coincidentally, doesn't want any more treasuries. They don't want any more. They're slowly, doing away with the dollar. So that's the issue that we're having right now, right? The issue that we're having right now is that today Trump went in and Putin told him, I don't think we're going to deal with anything. They like each other. Trump won the Nobel Prize. They still have a strong relationship. The Europeans are out, basically. Why they weren't alone in the car? Because they were alone when they took the ride, and that's when everything went on. Later on, you'll find out exactly what they say to each other. No questions for reporter. It was a good thing that there was no question to reporter because it helped Putin, and that was a gift for Putin. Trump gave a gift to Putin, and Putin gave in return gave a gift to Trump by saying, "Hey, you know what? If you were president, I would have never invaded Ukraine." Bam! Right there. That's a major, major, major win for Trump. So because he kept saying it over and over, people say, "Oh, come on, it must be true because Putin mentioned it." So you need to understand these type of things in terms of the interests that they have with each other. That I think is very important. Okay, always remember the interest of the people. Okay. Now next, what you need to realize is the following. I think that Trump basically wanted the Nobel Peace Prize, but I think everybody knows that. There is not going to be peace over in Ukraine versus Russia for the simple reason is what Ukraine wants is impossible to have. I'm sorry, you can't get that. Why not? Because let me tell you what Zelensky wants, right? What the Ukrainian wants. What do they want? The Ukrainian, basically, what they want full territory restoration, legally binding security guarantees. Okay, fine. Full territorial restoration, that's never going to happen, okay? And they knew that. That's why when Trump came in and Putin says, okay, you're not going to, no, okay, because I'm not going to give that up, okay? I think what they've agreed to say is we're going to stay where we are. In fact, I think today there was something about freezing. What did I hear freezing? Putin told Trump he could relax some territorial claims in exchange for the Donetsk region. He offered to Alaska summit to freeze the front line. Here's a word right there, freeze. The word is coming out. We're going to freeze this thing the way it is, and that's it. And the U.S. is not going to give any more weapons, so therefore it stops the way it is. And it stops, and it just dies of its own death because there's nothing to do, because there's no weapon to fight with. If you have no weapons, you have to understand what the U.S. is trying to do. Try to keep MAGA, who do not want another war, quiet. The U.S. wants to make sure that Russia and China and India stay apart, which is working, because Trump is talking to Russia and really not talking to Europe. Putin wanted the U.S. away from Europe. It won. He had the meeting with them, right? So it's fantastic, right? They all got what they wanted. So I could see backlash in Washington as Trump gives Putin a red carpet welcome in Alaska. Lindsey Graham, for example, praised Trump for meeting with Trump leader, but said the best case scenario now was a ceasefire well before Christmas. Trump seemingly did not, as critics fear, stitch up a deal with Putin to be forced on Ukraine president. Oh, come on. Did you actually believe this was going to happen? I told you that the day before. But he did welcome Putin, who is wanted by the International Criminal Court, which the U.S. does not recognize. Putin suggests that two presidents have struck a deal, referring to agreement that he said was a starting point. But basically, they agreed to say, listen, we're going to stop it. The war stops right now, and this is it. We're done. I'm not sending more weapon. Let's move on because I want to do business with you and some other things, right? Because right now, that it is very plausible strategy layer behind the U.S. push for a deal with Ukraine is that while the public framing focuses on ending the Ukraine war, analysts note that detaching Russia from China. Inform yourself. Look at the news. Or at least loosening their growing strategic alignment could be a major long-term U.S. objective. It wants to break the no-limit partnership. Since early 2022, Moscow and Beijing have deepened political, economic, and military ties, presenting a united front against the U.S.-led alliance. Remember early 2022. What happened in 2022? Basically, Russia invaded Ukraine. Since that point, boom, Beijing is in there. Remember, these people play chess, okay? It's 2 points out of 4. Limiting China's strategic depth. China's benefits from Russia as a sanction-busting partner is a source of cheap energy and a military technology collaborator. Weakening that link would complicate Beijing's ability to withstand U.S.-led economic pressure, especially if tensions over Taiwan escalate. Don't forget, Taiwan is still at play. Taiwan recently wanted to meet with the president, the U.S. president. The president said, no, I'm not meeting with you. I need $400 billion from you, not 100, or definitely not, I think, 15 that you gave last year. We need some real money to be invested in the U.S. Number 4, geopolitical bargaining chip. If Russia feels it can get security guarantees, economic relief, and some recognition of gains without relying on China, because China doesn't do it for free either, it may be more willing to edge its China ties. Even partial distancing would be a win for U.S. global. That's what they're trying to do. They're trying to get Russia away from China. Now, you may not care, you may not understand, right? But these people do, right? And these people want. And don't forget, World War II. If it wasn't for Russia, I'm not so sure what would happen with Germany, right? Don't forget, World War II. What was... And before I answer that question, let me ask you the following question. Let me ask you the following question. I mean, the following curve, the following... Will Russia get closer to China now? Let's see. Let's see if you get that point. That so what was Russia's roles in World War II? Who cares? Happened so long time ago. No. You need to understand your history to understand what's happening. Okay. The war deadliest theater. The Soviet Union, my friends, bore the heaviest fighting of World War II. They lost around 27 million Soviet citizens. The Eastern Front accounting for about 80% of German military losses. The Russian gave up a lot in World War II. You need to remember that. That is a fact. That is not propaganda. Okay? And that's why he sat down at the table. The Soviet Union's massive contribution ensured victory in Europe, but also set the stage for post-war division, the Cold War. Well, unfortunately, they have... The Soviet Union was first both collaborator and later enemy of Nazi regime. It bore the brunt of the war in Europe, suffering catastrophic losses, but playing the decisive role in defeating Hitler. Without the Russian, you would not be able to do it. So there's a bit of a history between the US and Russia, believe it or not. It's a tense history. There was a Cold War and everything else. But that's a fact. You could check it out. It's not just me saying it. It's a fact. Will Russia get closer to China now? Let's see what you're saying. I believe that it depends what they've agreed on, obviously. It will depend heavily what they've agreed on. But it's not a done deal. It is not a done deal. Next. Let me talk to you about something else, which I think is important. The fact is that, let me talk a little bit about the USSR and Russia are two different countries. Yes, of course. I mean, oh, hold on. I don't know if you know, but the sweatshirt that the Russian foreign minister wore stated, let me double check that fact first. And this is interesting. Yep. So listen to this, and this is important. Lavrov, which is the guy that's been with Putin forever, and he was there among his delegation, chose to wear a sweatshirt emblazoned with CCCP. Did you know what CCCP means? What does CCCP mean? Anyone? Russia defeated Nazi Germany and America. America came on the main battle. What does CCCP means? Anyone knows? See? You got to know these things. Exactly. Viznach knows. Soviet Union. The Russian abbreviation for the former Soviet Union, USSR. This was widely seen viewed as a deliberate, provocative gesture invoking Soviet-era nostalgia. That's why this is make America, make Russia great again. That's what he's after. That's what they're all after. His attire was seen as part of a broader pattern of Russian provocation leading to the summit. The choice emphasized a narrative that Russian and Ukrainian are one people, resonating with Kremlin messaging that rejects Ukraine independent status. Remember, this whole thing started in 1950. SS, that's what it means? Sodium, Sovraninsky. Wow, this is pretty Respublik. Yes, Edie is totally correct on that. I like that. I like to have my subscribers informed. I want you to know what's going on. I want you to understand. And this is all about this. This is all about knowing, understanding, and acting. In fact, this gave me the idea to create member-only area of this channel. What I'm going to take opportunity, for example, what I'm thinking right now is, you know what? The European wants to keep fighting, then they definitely want. The European weapon manufacturers are pretty powerful over there. Now is maybe the time to invest over there. And frankly, now is the time to invest in Europe because there's a lot of money going there. They're going to be spending 5% of their GDP on weaponry. Find some good companies, cheap, low PE, and right now the PE ratio in Europe is pretty low. So why not? Why not keep at it? I don't mind. Right? It's pretty good. On social media, former Lithuanian Foreign Minister Zelensky mocked the move. You just gave us half of Ukraine, and we promise we will stop. But that's just quipping. That doesn't mean anything. You shouldn't look at it that way. The way you should look at these things is you need to understand what's happening. That's very important. Because if you don't understand what's happening, you're just a peon. Now, of course, you're going to say, well, how is this going to help me? How can I use that information? Right? How many people understand the Oriental Chinese? That's a very good question. Not many people understand the mindset. It feels to me that Chinese basically they opened up, they learn everything they need to learn, and now they're closing up and they're going to do business with the neighbor, and that's it. They don't want to be involved in wars and things like that. They just want to, well, we'll see what happens behind closed doors. Who knows? But you have indication. For example, during this meeting, it's quite clear and quite evident that these people basically have an understanding, right? Because the meeting didn't last as long as it was planned to be. But I think they knew it. And I told you the day before, what is it to agree on? I mean, what the European and Ukrainian wants, they're never going to get. This thing is going to freeze, and that's it. Because you need to understand what the mindset of all these people is. Russia and China borders each other. That's right. So much easier to do business. Europe manufacturing powerhouse has been decent. Yes, Germany can't afford anything of significance. No, yeah, Razor is right. I mean, it's. I mean, Europe is in trouble. Why? Because they focus on socialized everything, which is great, but eventually you need to protect yourself. So I think that that China's connection is very important because it's breaking the no limit partnership. It's limiting China's strategic depth. It's a Cold War precedent, a geopolitical bargain chip. So that's important. And when I say MAGA, I keep talking about MAGA pressuring this involvement. Is MAGA pressuring Trump to end involvement with Ukraine? Yes, many within the MAGA movement, including that guy, that senator, have voiced clear disapproval when Trump resumed arms shipments to Ukraine, even though they were buying it. He says, no, just because you're selling them, I don't want you to be involved. I want you to do anything. Okay? His reversal drew criticism from outspoken allies who see continued aid as a betrayal of America first value. They all want their country first, not just the U.S. You know, make America great again. Oh, come on. No. Make Ukraine great again. Make Russia great again. I mean, they all want that. Of course, what that means is that you're kind of closing into yourself. You're closing your bargain. We regret voting for him after not stopping the war, or, well, I don't know about that. We shall see about all these statements. Headlines echo this moment. MAGA world irk at Trump U-turn on Ukraine. Yes. MAGA loses it after Trump's sudden flip on Ukraine aid. No, that's it. No more weaponry. Continued MAGA-aligned rhetoric. Trump suspended military and intelligence assistance after a tense Oval. Look the way he was treated in the Oval Office. That was a pretty bad one. So where do we stand right now? Where do we stand in terms of risk for, let me see. Let's see the, yes, what? Yeah. Is Russia getting closer to China now? 70%. I mean, it might not be a scientific poll, but when you have 150 people voting, people are starting to be aware. I want you to be aware of that. That is very important. There's a big economic risk happening, and you need to understand. And the more you understand, then you could take, corresponding action in terms of jobs, in terms of investment, and I'll have all that in my membership channel because there's opportunities here. Stock market specifically. Big money to be made in the stock market right now, especially when rates are going to go even further down. Of course, the market is at risk of a big surprise, and we have to look for that surprise. But so far, my contacts are telling me it's green light right through. We shall see. So basically, what do we have? We have the economy in the U.S. Let's go through all 12 items to understand what are the risks and what can benefit you to understand what's happening in this situation. Number one, how is the economy going? The economy in the U.S. is just fine. India is going to take a hit. Switzerland is going to take a hit. mostly because of the tariffs. The U.S. economy is growing at 3%. Nothing wrong with that. Concern about the tariff and all that, but I think the economists are now saying maybe we were wrong. Maybe there's something more to the tariffs. Hating to admit that Trump might be right. We shall see. So the economy right now so good, except for one thing. In May, in June, and in July, the job creation was not that good. Okay. But unemployment rate is only 4.3%, very low compared to other countries. So be careful. The economy is not down 3%. GDP is up 3%. Number two. So unemployment, no, the reason unemployment is not up is because 2.6 million joined the workforce, plus 2.6 million, but the US lost 1.6 people that were not born in this country, had to leave. So only 1 million people added. So that's why you lost some job, but you also lost people that were looking for jobs. So therefore, number two, the stock market rocking. A little bit expensive, so be careful. If you're going to buy anything in the stock market right now, regardless if you like Trump, you don't like Trump or whatever, what you need to do, you need to remember to buy low cap stocks. You need to buy low cap stocks. That is very important. Don't forget to join the channel because I've got lots of interesting coming up for you next week. Next. The dollar. Well, that's a big question. Is the dollar weakening? Is it strong? Well, the dollar has been weakened, but frankly, the U.S. administration wants a weak dollar, and you want a weak dollar. Okay. Why do you want a weak dollar? You want a weak dollar. Hey, I don't see any. Well, anyway. Where are the super chats in this thing? You don't want a weak dollar because you want a weak dollar because it makes it cheaper for foreign companies to buy into the U.S. Okay. That's a fact. But the dollar is weak, then who's going to invest in your country if your dollar gets weaker, right? Basically, you invest, like if you're a European and you want to buy in the U.S. stock market, that's not going to be very helpful to you. Why? Well, because there's not enough money, quite frankly. There's not enough money because you're losing money. The dollar is you don't want a weak currency if you're an investor. If you want to buy, that's different. And number four, the tariffs. Now, the tariffs are all over the place. These are the highest tariffs since 1930. The tariffs are being used for basically, coercing, and this is a word for it, for some 50% on India is a tough one. But basically, the reason tariffs are being used is because it's very effective, at least for now. But more importantly, it drives the point home that the U.S. is running out of time, and it doesn't have to take 3 years to negotiate a North American trade agreement. Okay. Next. Why? So the tariffs is that's the reason why they're using the tariffs right now. And frankly, the U.S. is running out of time. Why? It's running out of time because industrialization, pharmaceutical, something needs to happen. Number 5, Trump versus Powell. Well, he's winning that battle. He's winning that battle because Powell is going to be a lame duck governor, lame duck Federal Reserve chairman. Why? Because you've got 7 governors, and 2 of them are already on the Trump side. 1 quit, and she's going to be replaced by a Trump governor. It's going to be 4 with Biden and 3 with Trump. So, more likely than not, they're going to lower taxes, lower the rates in. They are going to lower the rates in August. Now, of course, they're going to say at that time, well, let's see what happened with the tariffs. That's going to be tough to keep saying, let's wait and wait and wait, because don't forget the following. In June and in July, those numbers, the job created, were wrong. They thought that they had that much. Let me give you the exact numbers. I want you to be informed. I want my subscribers to understand what is going on, right? So basically, in May, they said we have 144,000 jobs created. Oh, you know what? I'm wrong. It's 125. It's 19. August, they're going to lower the rates, not September. 19,000? I thought you said 144. No, 19. In June, they said 147. They said, no, it's not 140. It's 14,000. So you could understand why Trump said, what the heck is going on? Right? You're off by 258,000. If the Fed had known these numbers, 19,000 and 14,000, maybe they would have lowered the rates at that time. Right? Because that means there's a weakening. This is for job creation. It's very weak. And this amount of error is actually very significant. Statistically, it's called. These errors, that's a big error that you did here. I mean, yes, I know that there's been some issues at BLS, and you don't have enough people. People are not replying and all that, but that was a big deal. Okay. So let's be careful. This is a big deal that you had there. Okay. Then in terms of the economy, well, she got fired. So we're probably going to have they're going to have to lower the rates in August. Otherwise, it's going to be World War III between Trump and Powell, because you're not lowering the rates again. Now, remember one thing. You need to realize that the Fed chair has been wrong before, and he admitted it. The Fed chair was wrong in 2021 when he decided not to raise the rate. Remember that time Biden was president? He didn't want to raise the rate. He waited and waited and waited, because it was right after COVID, and the economy started taking off, and they said, "Wow, what are you doing? Why aren't you raising the rates?" And he said, "Well, I thought that I didn't realize this inflation was going to stick around. I thought this would be a passing thing, but it was not." Next, we have obviously Iran versus Israel. Well, that is not over. That is definitely not over. And the lowest can be lowered to bond marriage between short term and long. That's true. China versus US decoupling, I have told you that is happening as we speak. Inflation watch. Right now, the inflation is at 2.5, 2.7%. Again, it's very low considering historically, and it's also very low, worldwide. The thing is, you have to be careful, because if you're wrong with the inflation and inflation goes up and you lower rates, you have a big problem. Russia, we've been talking about Russia. And of course, there is Ghislaine Maxwell. Now, don't underestimate Ghislaine Maxwell, because that's going to be a problem. We, the people, pay the tariff. Let me take a look at your comments. Okay. I don't mind keeping the discussions going, but you're going to have to pay me a little bit for that, obviously. We've been at it for 2 hours now, people. I do have a life. I do want to do other things as well. So send me $2. I will keep going. So Ghislaine Maxwell, I think that's the one you have to be very careful about. Trump is using them in our favor. The tariff have not impacted companies. They have not impacted the companies. I mean, Alan is right. That's why rates can't change. But reality is, U.S. end users are paying these tariffs. Well, hold on. Whoa. The U.S. is not really. That's not really. It's not really happening. It's happening, but not in a big way. We have lost every tariff negotiation so far. What why are you saying that? That's not true. Best negotiation tool available and is using to the best. Jim, you're the man. Right there, it's happening. Let's keep this thing going then. Jim Britt, you could say whatever you want at this point. Make your point. And we could discuss whatever you want to discuss. Well, I'm not smart. What I do is I educate myself as much as possible. I mean, believe it or not, it's like when I teach and when I do my my mini activities, in terms of financial advisor and property development and all that. What I do is, as I'm doing it, I am learning. The only thing is, I felt it frustrating that I wanted to reach a larger audience, like 48,000. I want to teach to everyone, but you will see. I don't know if you know anyone in that field, but basically, you learn with the people. For me to do a show like this, I take 2 hours, working on this to figure, okay, what did Biden, what did Trump do? Who was wearing the sweatshirt? Who was in the meeting? Who was not? Right? And then the more you do, the more you understand what's happening, right? And as you understand what's happening, you kind of have a field as to what's happening, an understanding at what's happening. That's what you do. That's what you do. You grasp it and you learn, and then you obviously want to take advantage of it. For example, right now, how do you take advantage of it? Well, right now, there is no reason for the stock market not to keep going up. Right? So right now, put a couple of options. I don't know if you're familiar with options. Buy options, right? S&P have room, but you bet understand the digital side of it. Yes, S&P 500 is very expensive, but when we say the S&P 500, let me give you a little course on security analysis. The S&P 500 is really the Magnificent Seven. It's not 500. The 500 companies don't count. Most of the weight of the S&P 500 is really around 7 companies. So you're not really diversified. Be careful. It does not mean that there aren't opportunities. In my Patreon, which I'm going to transfer over to my special membership, we have several companies that I recommended that are doing very well. It's up 50%. Why? Well, because I picked small company like GCT. You could look it up, GCT. Small company. Some companies that are growing very fast. Some company with no debt, right? I did all these things. And then guess what? Because the market will always go up. Put option is good, but not right now. Be careful. You may pay a lot. The market moves a lot, and it also moves. The market will always go up unless you give it a reason not to go up, right? Because there's so much money in the U.S. Everybody wants to invest in the U.S. Everybody put money in their 401k. In the U.S., there is no pension anymore, right? So all the money goes in the 401ks. So there's money flushing in. And you may not realize, but the M2 money supply in the U.S. is also feeding the beast, right? So there's money coming into the U.S. So the market has to go up. You can do straddles and butterfly. Yes, save man, woman, peace. Yes, depends on option. Correct. I mean, right now you could do a straddle, right? Because which basically you're buying. If you don't know what's happening and you think there's a lot of volatility, you buy on both sides. So you make money if the market goes up and down, up and down. The only thing is the market is just going up right now, so be careful, right? But there's a lot of opportunity, lots of opportunity to make money um, in the stock market right now. When can it stop? It will stop when there's going to be a surprise. When we're going to find out, right? Um, we're going to find out in this channel because we're looking for a black swan. The only thing that's going to stop this market is a black swan. What could it be? Well, I don't know. It could be the U.S. getting involved again with Iran situation. The Jim Britt is not happy. Jim, if you're not happy with coffee, yes, because you know what? That's a 50% tariff on Brazil. And that I have difficulties trying to understand why you're going after Brazil, because you don't have a trade deficit with Brazil. You don't have a trade deficit with Brazil, so I have a problem with that. But um, that is yeah, Jim Britzy is not happy. Now the coffee price are going to go up a lot. You got to be careful. And also meat is going to go up a lot. And okay, I was just spinning this thing. Okay. Correct. The Maxwell situation. Well, that's going to be a problem. I just want him to stop selling for his pocketbook dues. Yeah, well, the market right now and cigarettes. Yeah, the market right now is hurting a little bit, but it's not hurting, and it's not going to hurt for a while. So let's talk about the stock. I was talking about. I'm sorry, I'm talking about security and things like that. The market will always go up unless you give it a reason not to go, and that's why you have to look for reason for it to go down, right? Um, and what I think happens in the market, and right now the P/E ratio is 25, which is not that high, which is high, much higher than Europe. So right now, what I would do, you want to go in Europe, you want to take a look at some industrial defense name over there. In the U.S., you want to take a look really at what's going on with some of and we'll look into those. Some of the names that are basically the rare earth minerals like ICN, Idaho Resources, for example, that's doing very well. You want to take a look at the small cap, less than 2 billion in market cap. P of 30 is high. Which company is that? Save, like UNH. 12P. 12P is great. I mean, there's a lot of companies low P right now, and you should go for it. Maybe use graphics for these talks. Yes, I think I'm going to look into it. I'm going to see if I could do it vertically and through my. The only problem, you know what? Maybe we should do talks, membership only talks, because then it becomes in terms of recommendation. Yeah, but if you reach out to me, Jim, I could show. I don't mind sending you some of the charts that I've been talking about. Yeah, shoot me a message. I think I have an email in there listed. So that's also important. So the market is going to go up for a while. Of course, the thing is nobody could predict the market, right? And in fact, the reason nobody could predict the market is because nobody is able to understand the risk. And the problem is that the reason nobody understands the risk because everybody is focusing on return. Everybody wants return. Everybody wants to make money in the stock market, right? Obviously. So how do you make money in the stock market? Well, you got to look for the next Nvidia. No, that is not how you do it. You need to do the Berkshire way. And you know how he does it? He's out of the market right now, right? You know when to get out. You need to protect. You need to protect your amount. What does that have to do with anything? I don't understand that. And I will recommend. Let me recommend a couple of books that you want to read. You should definitely read a book by Mandelbrot, right? And Mandelbrot, but basically a mathematician, and he looked into, you know, for example, the odds of things happening, right? What I mean by that is during 2008 financial crisis, a lot of people were surprised at what happened because what they did is they assumed that nobody would that somebody that was paying their mortgages that wouldn't pay their mortgage in New York wouldn't pay their mortgage on the West Coast. It would impact on the East Coast. That would never happen, right? One stock doesn't impact another stock because that's the case. If that's the case, then you cannot predict anything because then it's chaos theory, right? I digress. If you have two people playing, flipping the coins, right? I'm flipping coins and you're flipping coins. What are the odds that I'm going to win and you're going to lose? Well, 50-50, obviously. Are you sure? Have you ever tested that? Test it and you'll see. The odds, yeah, assuming that each events are independent, right? But if it's not independent, it's never going to happen. So stocks are basically is chaos theory, which means that one is impacting another, and that's almost impossible to predict. But you need to know the trend, but most importantly, you need to protect what you have, meaning that when you're crossing the street, you're looking left and right, right? You don't close your eyes and cross. So you need to understand what's happening. Don't look across the street, look left and right. Because if you get run over, you're done with. It is extremely important for you to look when you're crossing the street. And that's why in the stock market, we are looking at all these things. We're not looking for stocks, winners. We're looking for, is the economy going to impact me? Is the dollar going to be a big deal? Is the tariff going to be, look what happened to the tariff, how it impacted the stock market. Is Trump going to be able to get power to lower the rates? Yes or no, right? Are we going to have a war with Israel? Who cares? Well, if you have a war between Israel and Iran, because if you do, they're going to close this time the Strait of Hormuz, and then oil prices are going to go up, which is going to cause inflation. Is China going to decouple from us? Yes, because they're going to close their doors. Now you're going to pay 3 times, 4 times more for the same thing. They're closing the door right now for the rare earth mineral. Could happen. Inflation. What's going to happen to inflation? Is it going to go up like everybody says? We don't see it yet. Maybe it's a fallacy. Well, then you just FOMO, fear of missing out. Be very careful. You need to understand all of these concepts. At least I want my subscribers to understand them. I want my subscribers to understand everything that's happening so that at the very least you are informed and you know. And then, of course, you can make, investment decisions or whatever and buy whatever you want. But it's okay to buy stocks, but make sure you don't buy stocks when a big crash happens. And unfortunately, right now, the P ratio is extremely high. Very, very, very high, 25. So I'll be very careful. Let me see if I could share with you this chart. Right. since we're talking stocks. Yeah, we gotta be. You know what? Next time I'll have some charts for you guys. It's not gonna work. Okay, I'm gonna have to work some charts for you later on. But basically, it's important to understand the stock market, especially now. Lots of things, lots of good things are gonna happen. But you need to understand geopolitical risk, unfortunately. And believe it or not, there's lots of. I'll give you a nice picture in the meantime. There's a lot of things happening. Like these are stocks, right? All of these things are like stock. Which one is the best? How do you pick a stock? Which one is the best? How do you know what's going to happen in the stock market? That's the most difficult part. And going forward, you need to understand where this whole thing is going to go for. And that, my friend, is something that you need to realize. Oliver North and his investment group always bought with a low market. Let's talk about college since somebody's asking that question. I will tell you that it's not so much what you've learned, it's what you've done, right? You need to understand that the reason everyone is going to college or university is because it started after the Industrial Revolution, right? And the idea was to put these people in. You're coming at 9 o'clock, you leave at 5 o'clock, right? To prepare you for labor-intensive work that you're basically going to work in a factory. We haven't changed our way of teaching and the way to go to university in a long time, right? Because it was created at the time of, and I'm answering your question there, by the way, I'm grateful. And the reason is because everyone, they wanted to prepare you to work for the Industrial Revolution, meaning you're going to build a car, a train, or whatever, right? But now the world is changing, and you have to be careful. And this is where this channel could be helpful to you, because now with AI, you're not making anything anymore, right? You're just moving things around. You're moving information. And the better you are in information, the better off you're going to be. Because right now what's happening, and I'm sure you know some people that are entry-level position, their job is being taken away from them because of the fact that the AI can do the job for them. And that's a problem, right? You don't want that happening. But college and universities still teach the same way, right? It'll depend which university. You don't go in the field and walk around and think, hey, what are your thoughts? No, you got to come in at 9 to 10, 10 to 11, 11 to 12. You get credits, you get GPA, right? You get a degree, a piece of paper, and all these things. But are you really prepared for the working world? Because that world is moving fast. Oh, I've learned to be a coder in Python, in C, and all these things, right? Well, guess what? ChatGPT could do that now. I don't think AI will take jobs. It's just updating humans. No, they're not going to take the jobs. It's just that you have to learn how to use AI, understand AI. Oh, let me see. Let me see if you guys are prepared. Who uses, let's say, Chat GPT every day? Let's see who actually uses ChatGPT every day. Because it's important. You need to use this thing every single day to understand its capability. It's not like Google, right? You could have a conversation with the thing. It gives you opinions. Once per week, really? But I guess you're using Google? Wow. Yeah, I could see in your conversation that you're not really using Chat GPT. What I mean by that is, well, I mean, you could ask ChatGPT, literally, this is my resume, and what kind of job could I be doing? You could ask ChatGPT, because there's reasoning behind it. It is quite helpful. Ooh, very nice, Steve. Now we've got some anthropic and perplexity. I like that. There's so many things that people think they do know. And you think you know, but you don't know, right? Like, can you be in two places in one place? What are you talking about? Obviously not. That's not true. You can be, and they have proven it. This conversation has a substance. It will never make most human workers absolutely. No, you need to realize, well, there's a reason why Gemini, ChatGPT, and all these guys are getting together. Yes, you can be physically at Lucia, and we can also be in a meeting in Prague. No, grateful. Actually, I'm serious. You can be in two places. Not you. But there was a. I'm sure someone is gonna, especially the guy that talk about anthropic. There was an experiment that was done where they basically split the they split the light into the slot. It's called the slot experiment. Okay, I got to tell you because you're going to think that I'm saying things that are not true here. Let me give you what is the double slit experiment. Look at it. The double slit experiment is one of the most famous and important demonstrations in physics because it revealed the strange wave-like behavior of matter, U, and light. It was, believe it or not, performed in 1801, and then it was formed later on quantum version in the 20th century. They repeated it with electron, atoms, and a bunch of things. And basically, it shows that light and matter can act like both waves and particle, and that observing them changes how they behave. Well, the U.S. is moving to bankruptcy right now the way it's going. In the next 3 to 5 years, unfortunately, industrial-wise, it's not going to have enough. There's concern about the dollar, and there's concern about $37 trillion. It means that when you give awareness, yes, that's true, Steve. Save man, woman, peace. That's true. Basically, what it says is that, that thing that talks about, this has nothing to do with Putin anymore, but that's the kind of discussion I really want to have, is basically when you, what do we do? Well, you inform yourself and you make sure you don't get a job where you're not supposed to be. Invest all your money in a place that's not going to go anywhere. You got to understand what's happening. The U.S. is not going to disappear, but the U.S. is at risk, like the Britain was a while back, of losing its relevancy. That's why the government is running around doing all these things to keep things going and keep these three people not talking to each other. But back to the double slit experiment, it basically means that something happens because you're looking at it. Well, don't be concerned. The U.S. is not going to disappear, but the U.S. is not going. It's not going to be the U.S. of the '70s that you remember. Basically, when Nixon decided to say, you know what, no more, because Nixon basically said we're not gonna have, the dollar is not going to back up. The gold is not going to back up the dollar anymore. It's going to do its own thing. That didn't happen. we live in the greatest time in our existence. I mean, yes, it's always better now than before. Oh yeah, no, of course, money is not what counts. Anyway, I think I want to explain to you what this double slit experiment is, which is also called biocentrism. And basically says, when they talk about if a tree falls in a forest, is it going to make any sound? Does it make a sound if a tree? No, most of you don't use ChatGPT. Wow. Okay, you got Benzo. Okay, electron neither act like a wave nor fall. Observe in this context mean interacting with what you're trying to observe. Observation doesn't mean look at it. Yes. This is, take a look at biocentrism, for example. I was always mesmerized, right? Robert Lanza, look at this guy. Robert Lanza's biocentrism, meaning life and consciousness are primary to the universe. They don't just arise, they actually create reality. Death is an illusion. Space and time are mental construct. It draws and it draws, or maybe I'm going too far here, but let me know. But it draws on the double slit experiment and observer effect, suggesting that reality only comes definite when it's observed. Right? It's more like metaphysics. Take a look. Look at this guy, Robert Lanza. Look into this. This is real. Hold on. I'll copy it for you so you guys have it in the chat. And you're going to be amazed at what this is. It meaning that things only exist because you're looking at them. It matters because it provides a framework for stronger conservation ethics, since every life form matters. And it started with a double slit experiment. And in a double slit experiment, it basically showed you that the wave particles basically did this. So that thing was in two places at the same time. So that's what I'm saying. You can be in two places at the same time. That is quite possible. I'm telling you, good stuff here. Okay. All right, guys. So we have more things happening tomorrow and the day after. So hopefully it's interesting for you. I have to go. I am familiar with that study. No, this is real, Andrew. You should look into it. I'm thinking you two should be gold. I know, we shall see. All right, guys. See you tomorrow.